When you're planning to move abroad, one of the most important decisions you'll have to make is what to bring with you and what to leave behind. When I left the US to move to Italy, I got rid of absolutely everything I owned except for 2 suitcases and my cat. But it didn't take me long to realize that you don't have to completely shed everything about who you are and all of your old habits to embrace and appreciate your new culture and lifestyle. I made a previous video about 5 things that I don't miss if you want to check that out next. But these are 5 American things that I can't live without, and I don't have to. So I either brought them with me or I bought them again once I got here. Number 1 is my cast iron pans. I'm gonna put this down because it's really heavy. I've been really into cooking for a very long time, and I just had discovered cast iron 5 years or so before I moved, and I pretty much exclusively cook with it. It's very good for cooking steaks and really getting like a char on meats, and it's really good for bacon, eggs, which is something I make all the time. And it's a little tricky if you're not used to it. It's hard to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's really hard to go back to anything else. I gave away my cast iron pans regretfully, mostly because of the weight. I knew in Italy there would be a lot of high quality cookware, and I figured that I could probably get the equivalent. But what I didn't realize is that most of the cast iron cookware that is really popular is actually made in the US. The cast iron is just not as popular here for cookware pots. There's the Le Creuset, but those kind of pots are usually just for like casseroles for putting in the oven, and they are usually with some kind of glaze or ceramic like coating. And so they're not the same as the ones that I have that I showed you, they're just bare. And for some reason, I don't know, it was really hard to find them. Nothing against Italian cookware. They make really good stainless steel pot, and I do use stainless steel as well, but I really like cast. So I was able to finally find a cast iron pan on Amazon, Italian Amazon. I ordered the smallest one because it was really probably because it's made in the US and I was ordering it from Europe. On my first trip back to the US, I got another one for much cheaper and smuggled it back with me. So I know I'll always use cast iron, but I'm still sad about getting rid of my old ones because this kind of skillet just gets better the more you use it. Second thing is also related to food. Spoiler, 4 out of these 5 things are related to eating or drinking. I don't know what that means. So I guess number 2 is my habit of eating more and informally on the couch instead of at a dining table. And I'm not saying that these are all like good habits, but that's definitely not an Italian habit. They tend to, I think, sit down and have meals together more than we do in the US. And I wish I grew up with that habit, but I was in a smaller family. There was 4 of us in the house most of the time. And we were always, active and doing different activities, and my parents both worked. And so it was rare that we would come together and have all of our meals together. 2 of us would be eating at one time, or our parents would eat later than us. That's very common in the US, I think. Also, when you're quickly eating, you just grab it and you just prop up on the couch with your coffee table, and that's where you would eat a lot of your meals. And so I've had plenty of apartments where I never ate on the kitchen table. Even in my last place in Italy, I rarely ate in the kitchen. In my new apartment, there's not even room for a dining table. So I have this lifted coffee table, which makes it much easier to eat on the couch. And I kind of continued that habit and I don't see a problem with it. I do have a little table and chairs that's outside on the balcony here. So I can eat outside if I want to, but I usually end up back on the couch out of habit. The third American thing I can't live without. I know that in another video I said I didn't miss how everything was so large and extra, but the one thing that I still can't live without that is extra is ice. The only thing that I have noticed that they use ice in here in Italy is mostly in cocktails. So if you get a margarita or a mojito or an Aperol spritz, you'll get ice. If you order a soda, Coke, or if you want iced coffee, that isn't really a thing. So it's not that there isn't ice, that's just not a preference for most Italians. And I think most of Europe, and I don't want to say most of the world, but I think it's really a North American thing, is like putting extra ice in everything. And I know why that is. My first job in the US was at SeaWorld, and they put me on the soda counter. And I still remember the first thing they said is fill the cups completely to the top with ice and then put the soda in. And the whole point of that is because you're actually getting less of the beverage, right? Companies have done this to originally to save money, but it's conditioned Americans to really like having ice because we like things extra. We like things extra cold. Like if I'm drinking water, if I'm out and it's a hot day, I prefer ice water. And I especially like it in my coffee. I know that you can't get iced coffee just anywhere at any cafe, and that's fine. I don't think that everyone needs to like iced coffee. I personally like it. So I just make it at home. I make my homemade cold brew, or I'll make my iced latte with lots of ice and coconut milk or whatever. I understand the aversion to ice, honestly, because it does dilute the beverage. But I think maybe it's a psychological thing. But I think if there's lots of ice in, like iced coffee, for instance, it stays cold longer and it doesn't get as watery as fast as if you just put like 3 ice cubes in and they immediately melt. But when I'm out and I'm at a cafe, I'll just drink a cafe macchiato or an espresso or even a cafe chocolato, which is a cold beverage but doesn't have ice in it. I don't think that I'll ever stop wanting lots of ice in my drinks, and that's okay. The fourth American thing that I can't live without is this right here. This is my US American keyboard. So I didn't know that there were different types of keyboards until I moved to Italy, and then a few months later my laptop completely died. So I had to get a new one in a hurry. It was a weekend. I went to the one computer shop that was open. I brought my laptop to try to repair it, but I needed to work the next day on my laptop. So I needed to buy a new one immediately. I didn't even realize, but he said, "Oh, we only have laptops with Italian keyboards. Is that okay?" So I said, "Yeah, I guess it has to be." It didn't look very different to me. So I said, "Okay, let's do it." I actually didn't care that much because I knew I wouldn't really need to use my laptop keyboard. Part of my ergonomic desk setup is I always use a full-size keyboard even with my laptop. It was easy enough to find a US style keyboard. There really isn't that much of a difference. Some of the symbols above the number keys are in different spots. It doesn't really affect me that much. So when I travel, I do use the Italian keyboard because I don't use it that often. But I don't think I'll ever have a reason to completely stop using my US keyboard. And the last American thing that I know that I'll never be able to live without is another cookware product. It's my Instant Pot. So I looked it up, and Instant Pot was actually founded in Canada. It's an electric pressure cooker, if you're not aware, and it was very, very big in the US. I think I also got it around 5 or 6 years before I moved to Italy. I really love it. And I had like a little personal size one when I was in the US, and I couldn't bring it with me, obviously, because of the 2 suitcases, but also because our outlets are different in Europe. So I couldn't have used the US one. I did start out not having one, and I really missed it. It was one of the things that I used all the time to cook. I don't know if you saw my last video, I was cooking some homemade chicken broth, which usually takes hours and hours and hours on the stove, and you have to constantly stir it. You could just put it in. That took me an hour to make. I use it to cook stews and curries. So they do sell them here, and I don't know how popular it is in Italy. I know Italians tend to do a lot of traditional cooking, and they pass down the recipes from generations. My family was not a big cooking family. I didn't learn how to cook until I was an adult, really. I did learn a little bit from my Italian grandmother, of course, but they didn't have those kind of appliances back in her day. In Italian cooking, I know there's a lot of sauces and things that you slow cook on the stove. And the Instant Pot, it makes those things, but it makes them quicker. So I can make a really good bolognese in 30 minutes versus like the 3 or 4 hours you're supposed to be cooking it because of the pressure cooking. So I got the bigger version, and this one is the Instant Pot Duo Crisp, which is also an air fryer and also 9 other functions. And it was really useful actually when I moved into my new place because my kitchen was completely empty. There was no appliance. I used my toaster oven and I used my Instant Pot. There's a saute function. I used it to fry my eggs in the morning. It makes a lot of good one pot meals. I could go on. Uh-oh. My cat just moved the camera. I won't go on and on about the Instant Pot. I had it in the US, and so it's something that I really enjoy using to cook, and I always will. I think in order to succeed as an immigrant in a new country, you can't completely get rid of who you are. Even if half of my family is from Italy, my experiences as a US American really shape who I am. I moved in my 40s. So the older you are, I think the less likely you will be able to change everything about your habits and what you like. And that's okay. Am I going to expect to go into an Italian coffee shop and get an iced coffee with lots of ice? No, but I will sure make one at home every single day because that's what I like. That's what I've been doing for years and years. So I mostly want to encourage people that even if you feel like set in your ways, you can still have a new adventure and live in another country. Bring whatever you like, whether it's a habit or an item or something that is important to you. All those things make you who you are, and being yourself is really the first step to fitting in. Thanks for watching. Remember, you only have one life, so start living it.